Hey, how's it going? So this is going to be a video potential series on cold tactics. So I want to kind of place people in two different scenarios. So there's the scenario one, which is where you're going to utilize cold tactics. This is probably 99% of people that are running ad accounts. And if they run into the issue of thinking, oh, I got all the settings right, I have my brand exclusions, my, audience exclusions, I'm not targeting any repeat customers. I've got, maybe new customer setting on my performance max campaigns or my search campaigns. Reality is those do not work. And you can even check if you try them. Just go to segment, add event type. You'll see, for example, clicks versus engaged. And you can also see new versus return customers inside of the segments as well too. So kind of crazy. A lot of people think that cold settings for going after more cold colder audiences, new customers, is super straightforward, but it's not. So this video is going to give you guys a little bit more tricks that you can use that kind of play the algorithm and allow you to go more aggressive when normally you can't, or you don't think you can in the first place. Now, if you don't already know, we also have another YouTube channel called CProGrowth, where we show all the evidence of all of this working versus me just rambling on here. So this is, like I said, the summary of what we're explaining over there. Now, the really important part about this is that we do not track results in platform. So I'm not looking at ROAS, I'm not looking at conversions, I'm looking at how my settings in the account are affecting the P&L of the company, right? What is going on in the business due to my changes in the ad accounts? Now, there's correlations that take skill. It takes time to understand that, but this is going to be a general overview of one of those correlations we found to be effective on settings inside of ad accounts that tend to drive more colder traffic, new customers on the back end of the business from a P&L perspective. If you're looking to get a really good ROAS, this is not the video for you. Remember, we're not optimizing towards ROAS because ROAS does not take into account repeat users, people further down the journey, brand traffic, cold traffic, right? There's kind of a blend of it all. Businesses are way more complex than that. The only way you grow a business is by getting new customers. So I'm going to show you how to set up the account to go after more new customers, or at least allow you to prospect in that scenario. Now, making it profitable is going to be a case-by-case scenario, but this is the starting point that I like to do for pretty much all my accounts. So I'm going to give you the gold right now, so you guys don't have to wait. So let's jump into it. So when it comes to bidding strategies, if you haven't already seen this, bidding strategies are one of the biggest levers that you can pull in your account, and also one of the areas where you might notice a higher likelihood or a higher percentage of warm traffic being the main priority in that campaign. And so by warm traffic, I mean repeat users, someone that has already seen your ad somewhere else, and now this is maybe like the 5th, 10th, 20th, whatever it is, click in their journey. This will kind of give you an idea of that. So the first thing that I want to cover is the differences between these two strategies. So this is meta, cost caps, bid cap, max volume. That'll kind of give you the general consensus around the sales campaigns. There are more, but this is just the general idea behind it. The same thing over here, but for Google. T-ROAS, TCPA, max conversions, max conversion value, max clicks, and manual CPC. Like I said, I know there is more in terms of just, bidding strategies for Meta, but I'm going to go over Google because it's very specific, and then I'll apply this to Meta as well, and you will understand how that functions. So when it comes to the idea of a bid strategy, so a lot of people think that bid strategies are, I just put a target CPA, meaning I want to pay this much for conversion, and that's what I'm going to get. And so the issue with this is that it doesn't take into account that the algorithm has to find your audience in the first place. So what that means is that if your account doesn't have any data whatsoever on conversions, how is it going to meet your target cost per acquisition, right? And so it has to farm out and learn, sort of understand the type of users that are converting to then have more of a database to then optimize and ideally get you your target CPA that you want. Now, the way that we would place this is target CPA, I would say kind of fits in this area. I'll make it a little bit smaller so we can fit more in here. So target CPA fits, I would say, kind of in this area. Now, this arc over here is what I would say cold traffic, better placement. I would say more aggressive bidding as well too. So I'll type this in. And just so we have that as context, I'll put that right here. And let me actually do another one down below. So we'll do less aggressive bidding. Okay, so this is an area where we're going super aggressive and we're trying to go after colder traffic, and it's better placement because it's just going super, super aggressive. So I would actually say, so let me reverse this, target CPA should be over here on the warm side of the equation. So we're looking at more restrictive, more safe, more not really growing, but more so just optimizing towards efficiency. I, for reference, do not like things that are further down the funnel or further down the arc when it comes to this. Cool. Okay, so TCPA is here. I would put T-ROAS a little bit further down than TCPA. So the reason why I would put T-ROAS a little bit further down is because T-ROAS is optimizing both for the conversion and the conversion value. So what that means is that you are setting two restrictions, not one. TCPA is just one restriction. I don't care what the value is. I'm just going after conversions. T-ROAS, I care about conversions and I care about the value. So it's two layers of restrictions on top of that. And so when you set a higher T-ROAS, placement will be lower in terms of how aggressive it's going to be at finding more people. Now, the other, I guess, version of this is max conversions, right? So this is just going after as many conversion signals as possible. I'm going to pull max volume over here as well because these are really just the same thing. I'll put meta on this side of the wall as well, so just you can see. In fact, I will do this as well too. I'll name this meta so you guys can understand this. And then Google. Cool. So, like I said, each one of these sides has the respective bidding strategy on it. Okay, cool. So let's now, let's see, I'll probably put cost caps probably in this area over here. So kind of, I guess, a tier system. And then bid caps, I would put a little bit wider here. Cool. Okay, so now when it comes to max conversion value, I would put this a little bit lower. Like I said, the same exact thing. I'll just duplicate this, would be for meta. This is getting more and more complicated. So in fact, let me just remove this to keep it simple. So, but you kind of get the point. So maximize conversion value would be probably around this area here. In fact, let me move this just a little bit further up. We'd probably float around this area here. So that's max conversion volume. And then when it comes to max clicks, this is kind of a tricky one, but I would say that this one probably fits around this area as well. I would say maybe a little bit above it. For the sake of argument's sake. And then manual CPC is going to be something that we'll discuss in a little bit because this can be very, very extreme in one way or another. It tends to be more towards cold traffic, so I'm going to place it around here, but I don't want to, that's going to be a separate topic. So when we're looking at this, we can say, okay, based on all this information, we know that these types of bid strategies are colder, these types of bid strategies are warmer or colder, and then these are warmer, and then these are warmer. So the caveat with this is that if I have, let's say, a 200% ROAS in my account, right? So I'm hitting a 200% ROAS. Let's make this green. And I'm thinking, okay, my target CP or my T-ROAS in the account is targeted at 100%. So what that means then is that since my T-ROAS is put at 100%, then I'm not being as restrictive because I'm able to hit a 200% T-ROAS goal. So if this is a scenario in your account, this ratio tells me then this is probably getting actually more aggressive than I would think. Now, if you're in a scenario where your T-ROAS is, let's say, at 200% and we're the exact same, we're probably getting into this scenario where we might not be as restrictive as this, but we're still pretty dang restrictive. It's not really prospecting as aggressively, and we're right on the cusp of this going extremely warm and not able to spend. Because the warmer you go on these types of bid strategies, the warmer your overall account most likely will be, which means it's not farming out audiences, which means the bids are going to get restricted, and it's not going to spend your full daily budget. And so if we take this logic further and say, okay, let's say my T-ROAS is at 300%, Now we are completely in this scenario where we are just dropping in spend. We're not able to hit that, 200% or 300% goal that we have. We're only hitting 200%. This is now no longer a good goal in the account. We are now eating our own traffic and essentially stair-stepping our way down of spend to try to hold that efficiency. Tons of accounts are in this scenario, and I'm surprised it still happens. It doesn't make any sense to me. And the way you get out of this scenario is you want to go up the vine when it comes to the bid strategy. So if you're at 200%, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm at 300%. I really need to get more aggressive. I'm going to drop it down to 40%. That immediately shoots you way, way up here to where you now go super aggressive. You're in like that max conversion value range, I would say probably around here, where you're just going after, you're prospecting. The T-ROAS in the account or the ROAS in the account might drop down to, let's say, 100%, and you're now in the process of educating new buyers to then convert. And so you have to kind of play these games carefully, because clients might not want you to do this. They might not be looking at back-end metrics, and so you might not be able to make as big swings of that. Luckily, most of our clients that we have are looking at P&Ls, and it really allows us to get aggressive on this, because we've found that the more aggressive we get on this, the more new customers you get at a lower cost, because you're able to prospect out and get more aggressive to, place better. The issue with this, though, is that if you end up, for example, at a T-ROAS, let's say you go from a T-ROAS of 200% and you're getting, let's say, we'll keep it at 100%. And let's say you're getting at 100%, people will immediately have a very high budget. And this could be a scenario where the budget is not necessarily getting better, meaning that it's dropping. And so you have to drop the budget as well, because if you if you decrease the T-ROAS to 40%, it's going to want to spend that whole budget that it wasn't spending previously. So you want to make sure that you trim the budget down to meet it at its goal. And if you want to play it safe, you could be in a scenario where you jump to 80% and you go right below what the actual account is hitting at the proper spend. So you ratio that out and you say, okay, I'm prospecting 20% of the time, and the other 80% I'm hitting goal in theory, right? You want to give the algorithm a little bit of leeway so it can go more aggressive. Now, the same exact situation or the same logic applies to target CPA. It's just less restrictive. So what that means is that target CPA, you want to be more or have a higher target cost per acquisition. So I'll actually play this out for you. So if I have a $100 target CPA, and in the account, I'm getting $80 CPA, then that means my target CPA is set really high, so it's able to prospect out 20%, roughly, of my current $80. This would place probably closer in this scenario here from a cold versus warm perspective. Now, if I jump this up to $200, now we're going up further up the vine when it comes to cold traffic, because we're allowing the algorithm more flexibility in prospecting. The risk of this, obviously, like I said, though, is that if we just shoot this super, super high, we're going to become potentially very inefficient. So like I said, there's a science behind it, but there's also an art behind it to understand the business and also the trend in the account, so you can better calculate exactly what type of TCPA or T-ROAS you want to run. Now, what I like to do personally, and this is kind of the final caveat of this, aside from the manual side of it, is I like to go very aggressive from the very beginning and limit based off of the budget. So in this scenario, let's say that we're getting a 150% ROAS, let's say, in the account. And I'm like, okay, we have a T-ROAS at 150%. And it's a shopping campaign, let's say. So I can't change off of T-ROAS. I'm stuck with T-ROAS for conversion-based bidding. This means I want to get more aggressive. And if I'm spending the full amount inside of the T-ROAS shopping, that means that I'm going to be saying, okay, we are spending $100 a day and I'm spending the full budget. I'm getting 150% T-ROAS. I look at the P&L, I try to scale it, and I don't see new customers starting to come from this. I see this now starting to drop in spend, and maybe the actual ROAS drops to 130, and I start to see some signs of decay. Super, super big red flag. I then will say, okay, I'm dropping the tier ROAS aggressively down to 40%. I'm going to also drop the spend so we don't overspend, and I'm going to meet it at efficiency with a lower spend to make sure that we're closer to that 150% T-ROAS. Super technical when it comes to this, but this is literally what I do, so I want to just give it to you guys. It's very, very important to mirror different strategies with different parts of the funnel. So if I have something that's more bottom of funnel, maybe I'll use more warm traffic targeting tricks, I guess you can say. If I want something that's further up the funnel, which is majority of people, and we want to actually grow the business and get more new customers and prospect and grow the actual data in the account, then I will be, for example, using something like maximize conversions if possible, or of super low T-ROAS if possible. Now, the last thing that I want to cover is manual CPC. So manual CPC is kind of those weird things, and I would say that max clicks and manual CPC are pretty similar in how they would function in an account. So we're not using conversion-based bidding, we're more so placing, or we're going after placements more so. And so what that means is manual CPC, from when I use it, is typically on a brand campaign or a super new account, and we're just going to test the market for placement to then grow into it once we get enough conversions. So it's kind of a stepping stone to conversion based. Well, that is a big line. And so what this means is that we typically will not see large accounts spending on manual because there's enough conversion data to leverage conversion-based bidding. So that's kind of the general consensus on manual. I would say the higher the manual CPC is, the colder it's going to go in theory, right? So if manual CPC has $1,000, cost per click or CPC bids on it, then you're going to be in a scenario where okay, I'm placing number one for these keywords, and the only thing that's stopping me is my budget. I'm just going straight to the moon when it comes to this. If you go a very low CPC, then you're probably in this scenario where it's unqualified traffic, lower placements. I wouldn't necessarily say it's warm traffic, but just lower quality. If that makes sense. So instead of saying in the first, second, or third position, maybe I'm at the bottom of the page, depending on how low those bids are in the first place. And I'm not leveraging conversion-based data. So I don't understand why people would run manual CPC on a super, super low threshold unless it's a very, very education-based click where people are maybe interested, but they're not fully sold and you're not expecting them to buy, but you're expecting that your landing page is going to create some sort of memorable experience for them to then come back later and maybe have your max conversion campaign convert them because they're showing conversion-based signals, right? So you can layer these in separate campaigns to kind of build funnels, and that's actually part of the strategy behind the feeder strategy. So anyways, hope you guys like this video. I wanted to kind of give a general consensus on how I view bid strategies and what ways you can leverage them for your own business or for your clients. Be very careful. Like I said, always work off of budget as another lever to kind of counterbalance the stress that maybe setting a 40% T-ROAS will do to the account. So anyways, thanks again, and I will see you guys in the next video.